Predicting and countering a player can flush them out of their comfort zone and force them to make mistakes. So today, we're going to look at the importance of initial height, edit predictability, build predictability, awareness, and build fight awareness. These combined together will help you outsmart and counter most players you run into. So let's jump right into it. Predictable edits is a very easy thing to avoid, but I still see so many people making the same mistakes. If you steal someone's wall and they decide to stare directly back at you, ADSing with their shotgun, you probably don't want to edit in for a 50-50 fight. It's much smarter to get a different angle and fake some edits instead of just editing in. On the flip side, when someone steals your wall, you have multiple ways of escaping instead of going for that 50-50 shot. It's easy to edit out the top or the side, but personally, I don't like editing out the top as much as there are a couple of ways to counter it rather easily. If they're fast enough, they can edit in, break your ramp, and replace it with a cone, and you're left pretty defensiveless. They can also block you from the top when you're editing out, and you'll just run right into their wall. But if you do go at the top, you will have height quite easily, but there are some risks to it. What I like to do is I like to edit out the side and create a new turtle, and I'll just reset my edit, and from there I have a couple of choices. I can edit out the back side and quickly do a different retake, or I can just edit straight out the top, and it's a lot less likely to be countered as easily. Predictable builds or certain techniques that are in the meta can be pretty easily counterable. For example, mostly everyone does side jumps, so when I get up onto height, I floor off everywhere around me, not only to deny their side jumps, but if they decide to straight up ramp towards height, they'll get blocked off. I also control all of those edits around me so I can edit into them and get some really easy shots in. And constantly countering your opponents before they even have a chance to do a move or edit can frustrate them a lot and make them do things they might not typically do, which will open them up to making more mistakes that you can capitalize on. And that's where awareness plays a key role. It can be difficult in between all the builds and bullets of a fight, and you'll lose sight of your opponent occasionally, but knowing where they are will allow you to figure out what their next move will be, and will then allow you to counter them to make sure you can get in a position to hit shots that will for sure connect. But as well, going for shots that may hit, or where players should be, is also something that is viable. If you've watched some of the players who are crazy good in creative mode, or those who dominate late game, some of the players that come to mind for me are like Mongrel or Mr. Savage M. They can throw down a ton of builds and make those edit plays towards where a player should be to open up an opportunity to get shots in. But that doesn't mean you should be going for crazy edits and throwing out blind shots, because a lot of times they're not going to connect and it's just going to be kind of useless and not really worth it. But kind of like what I was saying earlier, there are a lot of things in the meta that you'll see a lot of players do commonly. So you can expect where a good player will be, and instead of shutting down their push like a counter would do, you can play a little bit more aggressive instead of cutting them off, and maybe go for some crazy double edits and things like that. When you initiate a fight, establishing height first is a huge advantage. You not only gain control of the situation straight away, but it also allows you to dictate what direction the fight will go depending on multiple aspects. When you control the situation, you can always adjust your playstyle to adapt to whatever your disadvantages may be. If you're far from zone, you can always use your height to create distance from your opponent and rotate a lot safer. But say you're low on health, you can always stay on height and slowly pick away your enemy's health and overbuild to make sure that you're evening the playing field. Certain situations you can pre-counter and put yourself in a much better position. For example, if I go to steal someone's wall, I always place a cone near the wall I'm taking. As well, I place a wall on top. The cone will stop them from being able to ramp out straight at me, and the wall will stop them from being able to edit out on top, as I was talking about before. Thinking 5 steps ahead of your opponent will allow you to reduce the amount of options they have, and will give you the opportunity to continue to think ahead, as the options they have are limited and again will not be what they're used to. Now to pass the question on to you all. What are your favorite counters or ways to outsmart your opponents? Let me know down in the comments. But as always, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.